This is Warhawk Beyond 2040, bringing to you another edition of the Wrestling Discussion Series. And today I wanted to share my thoughts with all of you regarding two brand new incidents that occurred. One from Raw just a week ago, and one from SmackDown just a week ago. Now, I haven't watched WWE in a really long time. Occasionally, I would tune into it to see what's going on. Sometimes you do get some little hidden gems or some surprises, maybe a big return or a big match that I would like to see. And I would usually watch the whole build up unfold leading up to WrestleMania or the Royal Rumble, depending on who it is and what's going on. But other than that, I've pretty much stayed out of WWE and, for the most part, haven't really cared about what's been going on much. But, ever since Triple H took over the running of WWE, especially on the creative side of things, I have noticed some changes. There has been some improvements. I mean, it's never going to be the glory days of the Attitude Era. Nothing will ever come close to that. But I have noticed that the show has become more watchable, and at times it's been enjoyable. I mean, back in 2023, I watched quite a lot of WWE. Obviously, not as much as I used to, but there were things that were going on that I thought, you know what, this has actually been pretty good. This has actually become, dare I say, more enjoyable, as I mentioned already. But fast forward to Raw Day 1 and SmackDown New Year's Revolution, there were two incidents that occurred which caught my eye and absolutely shocked me, and that was the sight of blood. Now, ever since WWE went PG in 2008, the lack of blood has been a real eyesore for hardcore wrestling fans, including myself, because blood has been such a huge part of wrestling history since there was wrestling. You know, when you have blood, it can really make a big difference for a story or a match or a moment, anything like that. And apart from the occasional cuts we may have seen, the lack of blood has been quite disappointing. But when I watched Raw Day 1, there was blood, and that involved Becky Lynch versus Nia Jax. Now, that was a really good match, very hard hitting. I haven't really seen a hard hitting women's match like that in quite a while. And Nia Jax picked up the victory, but Becky Lynch came out of that match with a bloody mouth. Now, obviously, we all remember Nia Jax broke Becky Lynch's nose before Survivor Series, and a lot of people have said that was the moment Becky Lynch became the next big star, which I totally agree. I definitely would say that moment where Becky Lynch was standing there with a bloody mouth and a bloody nose was a turning point in her career. So it was very interesting to see that in a match, because usually when there's blood, they stop the match halfway, referee brings in the towel, and then clean them up, and then the match continues. That was always a moment that pissed off a lot of fans during the PG years. So to see Becky Lynch come out of that match bleeding, I thought, this is interesting. Becky Lynch is bleeding. Okay. This is probably just a one off. There's not much to think about or read into. So come to SmackDown, and LA Knight got absolutely destroyed by Roman Reigns. And I couldn't help but notice at the top of LA Knight's head, he was bleeding. And I thought, hang on a second, Becky Lynch is bleeding on Raw, now LA Knight is bleeding on SmackDown. Are we seeing the return of blood to WWE TV, perhaps? Possibly. Now, anybody who grew up during the Attitude Era, Ruthless Aggression Era, or even the New Generation era for that matter, blood was a big part of the shows. Who can ever forget that iconic image of Bret Hart locking in the sharpshooter on Stone Cold at WrestleMania 13 with his whole face a crimson mask? It's an iconic picture. You know, when you think of Stone Cold, you think of that bloody picture. Now, WWE bringing blood back could work out to be a good thing if it's done right. Now, anybody who grew up as a wrestling fan remembered that blood was a big part of the Attitude Era and blood was a big part of the Ruthless Aggression Era. But I'm going to be honest, I felt at times that the blood was overused. I mean, everybody was getting busted open every single week, which, did make for compelling storytelling, but at times it just got a bit like, oh, this is a bit too much. The Mick Foley matches come to mind, but they were great matches, and the blood that was used in those matches told a very powerful story. So I'm not knocking the blood use for that. One prime example comes to mind in terms of using blood the correct way is WrestleMania 13, Bret Hart versus Stone Cold. Stone Cold gets busted open by Bret Hart. Bret Hart locks in the sharpshooter. Stone Cold is fighting with every bit of his being to try and get out of the sharpshooter before he eventually passes out. That was a powerful story because, number one, it cemented Stone Cold as the next big babyface and the next big star to carry the wrestling company. And it also helped cement Bret Hart as a sadistic heel. So, blood use for those kind of things can work. Now, Brock Lesnar versus The Undertaker in Hell in a Cell at No Mercy 2002, one of my favourite Hell in a Cell matches of all time. The blood use in that was way too much. It was a great match, told a very powerful story, but I felt the blood use in that was way too much than it should have been. Yeah, have Undertaker get busted open, but I love Taker, but he looked like someone just poured a bucket of tomato ketchup all over him. It just looked ridiculous. Love that match. It's one of my favourite matches from the Ruthless Aggression era, but blood use for that match, it was used well, but I felt it was a bit too overused, so to speak. So I think to use blood in this current era of WWE, it can work if it's used for the right reasons. So let's say, for example, the Bloodline get involved in Roman Reigns' match at the upcoming Royal Rumble 2024 pay-per-view. Roman Reigns retains the title, which we all know is going to happen. Sure as night follows day. And they destroy Randy Orton, LA Knight, and AJ Styles and leave them in a bloody heap. Now that could work. That's making a statement that Roman Reigns is the head of the table, he's the tribal chief, he's still the champion, and that puts him over as a real hated heel in the company because he's just essentially destroyed three favourites to win his title. Now that can work. That's something you can use in the correct manner. Now, the same with hard hitting matches, as I was talking about earlier Nia Jax versus Becky Lynch. Having a bloody nose or a bloody mouth, after a pure fist fight between two people, yes, that works perfectly because it adds to the drama. So, in terms of is WWE returning to the blood format, I say yes, bring it back. Bring blood back, but use it sensibly. Don't just use it for the sake of using it. Use it for when it matters. And by doing that, you'll get fans more invested in the match and, more importantly, the story. So that's going to be it from me. I'm going to wrap this up now. What do you guys think? Do you think Blood is returning to WWE TV? Do you think Blood should come back? And if so, how would you use Blood? Would you use it in a sensible manner, maybe to help build up rivalries or put over some moments, like, for example, brutal attacks, perhaps? Or use Blood in hard hitting matches? How would you use Blood in today's WWE TV if they were going to bring it back on a semi or full time basis? You know what to do, guys. Hit the like button, hit the subscribe button, leave your thoughts and comments down below, and I will see all of you next time for another edition of the Wrestling Discussion Series. So until then, take care, everybody, and stay safe. And once again, as always, much appreciated. Thanks for listening.